Welcome to the Nonprofit Renaissance Podcast, where we help nonprofit leaders go further and grow faster. I'm one of your co-hosts, Colin, and I'm excited to share this episode with you. Today, we're joined by Stuart McMillan, a man who embodies the essence of leadership, of innovation, of discipline, of faith. He's the creator of the Lighthouse Collective, a unique gathering that merges professional leadership insights with deep-rooted faith values. In this episode, Stuart reveals how a legacy of service has fueled a mission to guide others in connecting their faith with their professional and personal lives. So join us as we explore the power of bold leadership and the transformative potential of living authentically. Let's go further and grow faster together right now.
Tell us, who is Stuart?
Wow. It's complicated.
Should we ask your wife? Let's talk to her.
Yeah. You might want to ask her. Or my kids.
Yes, yeah.
Well, like I said, I grew up in Canada and played hockey and all the things Canadians do, and went to school at McGill University. And after that, moved to Toronto. I've been involved in church my entire life. My cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents on both sides are pastors. So,
No way.
Salvation Army officers, actually.
Wow.
So they were involved in the Salvation Army. As a matter of fact, my great-grandfather worked with William Booth to start the Salvation Army way back when it was still called the Christian Mission. So five generations of that.
Wow, that's a throwback.
It's pretty crazy. And so we moved to Toronto. I moved to Toronto after met my first wife and had two wonderful kids. And it was pretty cool career in telecommunications, candidly, to start. And so I was working for a number of companies there, and then I guess got introduced to what we call direct selling through a company called Excel Telecommunications, which the company I work for, we purchased it back in 1999 for $3.5 billion. And so that introduced me to that whole direct selling thing, which I always thought of pejoratively. But once I got into it, I just saw how that type of business could impact lives in a cool way, just impacting them and financially or from a community standpoint. And so was sort of into that whole direct selling niche for a number of years. That's how I met Deb. Deb was a supplier to the direct selling industry with a training company.
So did you direct sell her?
No,
Or the other way around?
We sort of danced for a little while. It was a bit of a dance. Yeah. And but finally kind of worked out, and I moved to Florida in, I think it was 2012,
Okay.
I think. So I haven't been in Florida long. Became an American citizen about 3 years ago. So
Well, welcome.
Congrats.
Yeah.
thank you.
And Florida, so welcome to paradise. I mean,
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
It's not bad.
The funny thing is, I've been coming to this area for probably 25 years. Unbeknownst to me that she was even around, my parents had a place in Dunedin.
Nice.
No
for
way.
many, many years. Yeah,
What drew them there?
Toronto Blue Jays.
That's right. They
So
train there.
Yeah, exactly. So Deb and I, we can bike from our house over to see the Blue Jays, and it's a place where we both get to be at home because almost everybody in the stands is Canadian, and but we biked over from our house, so
That's
it's
so
kind of
cool.
cool.
My grandparents owned a house. My mom grew up about 2 blocks from the stadium.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
Dunedin?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually went to a game this past week, so
Oh, that's cool.
So diehard Blue Jay fan, I'm assuming.
I'm a diehard. I was a Montreal Expos fan, and they're gone. So yeah, Blue Jays all the way.
Took the.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we're chatting today in Florida in connection with some of our friends and some of our network here in Florida about the Lighthouse Collective.
Yeah.
Is that right? Tell us more. I want to hear more about it. It's caught our attention to the point that we're like, okay, we got to bring Stuart in to tell us a little bit more about what it is, how it sprung up, and what people need to know about it.
It's kind of humbling even to hear you say that because it was it's all new. after I stepped down from the last company, stayed on the board, but stepped down from the company last summer. And we have a home in Maine, so that's where we pretty much spend kind of the end of May till November. And so we were up there, and someone introduced Deb to the book Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship. And she read it. I think she was in a Bible study with it or something. And then she said, you got to read this. And so I read the book out in our 3-season room every morning. And Jamie Winship always asks, he says, you have a chapter, and then he asks 2 questions. What am I supposed to learn from this? And what should I do about it? And so, I was trying really hard to ask myself those questions, and the Lighthouse Collective just came we need to start something. And I ran upstairs to her. I go, I don't know, this has just come from God, but we need to start something where we, for me, it's almost like guerrilla warfare, in that what I found, I've got 35 years of experience running a lot of big companies and stuff, and I've learned a ton. And so what I've noticed is that, there are common things like leadership things that people want to hear. And my mentor is John Maxwell. He's one of them. And, he tells me on a regular basis that everything, that he teaches on is actually scripturally based. And so, as a student of leadership, and as I, want to share things, with people on social media, my ultimate aim is to get them to see Jesus. But you know what? People don't always want to hear about Jesus right away. And so really, I keep slipping it in, so I do a monthly message from the Lighthouse. We call it Lessons from the Lighthouse. And I can get into why lighthouses, but
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah. But almost always have a scripture in the middle of my message, even though the message is, about, like this past month, it was about March Madness and, that kind of thing. But I always slip in some scripture, and ultimately want people to understand, that there's no such thing as no new truth. You can't make up truth. Truth is forever. We can discover it, right? But we can't make it up. And so always kind of pointing back to my faith. And so the Lighthouse Collective, as it evolved over the last few months, and I want it to evolve even more. I don't even actually know where it's going to be next year. I'm looking for people like you guys, actually, candidly, to sit with us and go, hey, we could do this or we could do that. But currently, it has sort of 3 pillars. The first pillar is this sort of digital presence. And then the second one is I'm writing a book right now called Ego-Driven Leadership, How to Recognize It in Yourself and Others and Flee from It.
Wow.
So
you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, all right? I like
It's
that.
a great titles are harder than
Yeah,
you
gotta
think.
have a hook. Gotta have a hook.
That's really
Yeah.
good. But
Now there are people who say don't have a
ego-driven
negative hook, but in this case, I talked to John Maxwell and John Gordon from the Energy Bus, and they both went, "Oh yeah,
And
that's."
they have some experience.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
say.
yeah.
those guys are semi-qualified
Yeah.
to give
They
you
know
advice.
And they said, "Yeah, that's good. That's good." That'll have people going, yeah. So the second pillar is really, writing a book. I have 2 in my head, and then the third one is these events. And so the events have evolved from, in my last company, I wanted to be bolder about my faith, and I decided just to go out there. And so we would have events, and on the Sunday I would, whether it was a leadership event or our big event, which eventually had 8 or 10,000 people at it, I would do an optional church service on the Sunday. And so we threw that out there to be bold. And that by the time we were in Atlanta, we were at where the Hawks play, the Atlanta Hawks, and we had 2,000 people at the church service.
That's cool.
And then John Maxwell told me in his voice, I think we need to be bolder, And so he said, we need to have we need to have an altar call. We need to, use the opportunity to have people come forward. And I was like, oh, wow, it's okay. We're going all in now. 200 people came forward that Sunday morning, and including a really cool picture that I have of course, when you rent out a venue like that, you have to have security, and it's this. I have this coolest photo of one of the security guards leaving his post, going forward, and then coming back.
Wow.
Come on.
Yeah,
That's cool.
That's special.
yeah, it was cool. So that whole idea of, okay, let's find a place where business people where we can encourage them to be bolder about their faith, and how do they weave their family life, being a good spouse, being a good mom or dad, and their faith into a successful business. I think that oftentimes we apologize for one or the other. One of the things I say all the time is I don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's a fallacy. I believe in rhythm.
Love that.
Right? To me, it's like an elastic. So when it gets pulled, and as long as it gets pulled the other way, if it goes back and forth, then you're good. If you stretch an elastic too far and don't the tension stays there, it'll pop.
Yeah.
And so really wanted almost to give business leaders permission to be bold, or permission to go, it's okay to work hard. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but lately there's this anti-hustle movement. Have you heard?
Yeah.
I'm an anti-hustle. And I'm in decades well above you guys, but I could tell you this: I have never seen someone who is successful who hasn't had a period of hustle.
Right.
I think that's just another fallacy. Like to think that I'm going to be, and success can be, it doesn't have to be money, but to be at the top of your game, to be significant in your field, it requires hustle. I don't care what anybody says. But it's hustle in a, you got to give some to your church. You got to give some to your community.
Yeah.
You got to give some to your family and your wife and kids and stuff. So, so the event was, okay, let's do this. Let's get a bunch of speakers together, TED Talky kind of, 20 minutes each, and we'll get them, primarily couples who are successful in business, to talk about how do they navigate that? How do they, what kinds of tips can they give this group of people to, how do I navigate a family when I'm in a job that isn't 9 to 5, when I'm working nights, so we're hoping realtors come, and mortgage brokers, and a lot of direct sellers, and people like that who, insurance salespeople, like people who don't just work 9 to 5. I mean, it's open to everybody, but those are the people, where there's hustle. And how do they navigate? How do they prioritize? And then how do they use their faith, and how do they get it out there in a way that is that resonates with people. So that's what we're going to do.
I love and actually learned this from Craig, our friend, Pastor Craig Altman. He's a fellow subscriber and listener here to the podcast. But about navigating the hustle and that seasons in life and the rhythm that. And for our listeners who are nonprofit leaders and pastors, you don't sign up or you don't answer the call to join a cruise ship.
No.
It's a battleship.
Right, yeah.
And it's very different. When you go on a cruise ship, then you jump on a battle. So navigate is very different. You're on alert, and the seasons and the waves and the storms, how you're handling it. So I love the theme, the topic, and I think it's very relevant for kind of next generation of leaders coming up as well, who are either quiet quitting or just trying to find their quick exit without the hustle.
Yeah, that quiet quitting is quite something these days. And I just, we think that the demographic is probably going to be 30s, early 40s is probably the
so young, super young babies.
Those are the people though on our social media right now. As we look at the people that are listening to us and responding, it seems to be that kind of 30 to 45 demographic that seems to be appealing to. And I thought, how cool! I've got a white beard and I'm still appealing to somebody.
That is cool.
I love it.
I heard two things that you said. I want to make sure I'm getting this, but
Okay.
I heard that you were basically trying to call out the reality of people in this position within business, that they can be bold. And
Yeah.
that- so you're taking your examples from running billion-dollar companies, which you may or may not have, you were most likely not owner of, which means you weren't the only boss.
No.
And you had to figure out how to be bold. I think sometimes people see that and they're like, "Oh, well, he had all the power." You didn't. You don't have all the power.
I didn't actually.
So to be bold in that position, no matter what ring you are in the business, and then the second one I thought was super important was this idea of how you manage the work and the things that are really practically applicable to these people. And I think it was so important because when I heard you talking, I was thinking about what we see on social. And especially in this group of people that you were describing, insurance guys, real estate brokers, what are they posting? They have got to portray success. That is
Right.
part of their business.
Exactly.
And so they can't post what it took to get that success. They cannot post that they missed their son's baseball game. They cannot post that they missed out on so and so's birthday because they were trying to do this thing over here. They cannot post the tension their marriage is feeling right now because people don't buy.
That's not aspirational.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you are combating that. And you're saying for a day, I'm going to get people together, and not just one story, not just my story, but a whole bunch of people's stories, TED Talk style, and I'm going to tell that audience the truth
Right.
of what it really takes to survive in times that were good and times that were bad.
Right.
I'm going to say this is what it looked like to actually be there and to kind of rip off the facade of the social media.
Totally agree.
And I think that is more necessary than ever.
Yeah.
For people who are aspiring to hit the levels of success that you've hit, whether it's as a family man or as a businessman. We need the truth. We need to get rid of this facade because it's tricking us. I think Satan's using it to completely deceive us, and we're making the wrong calls.
I totally agree. I talk about the difference between real life and real life, because the reels, right? The reels that you see.
Is that your second book? I like that.
Yeah,
too.
you like that? Okay, good. All right.
What's up? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
real
that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
truth. You know, we're almost forced into this fakeness.
Yeah.
You know, there's not, everything's artificial. And now, I mean, with AI, I mean,
more so.
I look at people posting, something super eloquent, and I know them, and I go, that okay, that's
Artificial, yeah.
not you. I think that was you, but okay,
Yeah.
But like, we're getting to the point where nothing's real anymore, and I think that puts pressure on people to go, I'm not good enough,
good.
So that's part of what we're hoping this day will do, and we're capping it off with I'm trying to use one of my old models. It's a day. I'll tell you about Jamie Winship because he's coming, which is so cool. But we're capping it off with a church service at night. So it's going to run from approximately 9 o'clock to 5:30. Go have dinner, and at night we're having a church service. Daryl Black is gonna bring the word. We're gonna have a worship band. And what I'm hoping, I told Eridas this, that I'm actually hoping that at least 25% of the people, hopefully more, are not believers.
Right.
They're going to come and hear about business and how do I navigate my personal life. And then I want them to be able to say, after everything you've heard, the call to action, after everything you've heard, let's go worship together. And you know what? I want to see lives change. I want to see a security guard waving a book saying, hey, I made a decision.
That's a big deal. There's churches all across America, 300,000 churches. The average church is not seeing 200 salvations. That story you told, like that's not a small number.
Yeah.
That's a pretty significant impact. There's pastors who are working for 365 days to see half that much salvation work. And you're calling, like the thing that you're talking about is that you've accomplished, and then to see what can come out of the Lighthouse Collective and these events that you're talking about could be really encouraging.
Yeah, we're hoping, we're going into this event and we want to tweak it, and it's our first. And when I shared this with John Maxwell, he I said, like, we want to try this, and he goes, no, you're not trying anything. You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it, and then you're gonna fine tune it. But you're not trying anything. And he's just a great guy to keep me going. But so that's the thing. Like, we want to see what's gonna work and what's not gonna work, and maybe we'll do two a year, maybe 3. I don't know. But it's really about how do we bring business leaders together and almost give them permission to be bold about their faith.
That's really cool.
Tell-
I've never heard of anybody else doing anything like
Well,
that.
tell us where the name came from. Is obvious connection to the mission as I'm hearing it.
So I spent all my summers from the time I was born in Maine. Every summer, my mom and dad would take us for 2 or 3 weeks to Maine, and never, they saved up to rent a place, and in this little community, a lot of the people from the church that I grew up in would go there, and a couple of our better friends over time, I ended up buying a place just kind of off the beach, and it's Deb and I were married there. My daughter Bethany and her husband were married there. It's just become a real cool. Our dogs are buried there. We have a little pet cemetery, but they were cremated. It's not weird. Well, we have to be careful because it's on the water, so we don't want things floating. It's just a little. But I've always been. I see God through lighthouses, and there was a transition because for a time it was the lighthouse to me. And that was the little bay where our cottage is. I've been going to my entire life. And one of the things when I made big decisions, when I decided to ask Deb to marry me, for example, I made that decision at that beach. And sitting it's called Casco Bay, there are 3 lighthouses. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. And it didn't matter whether I was 12 or 5 or 55. The consistency of the lighthouse was something I would go down and I'd hear the ocean, the consistency of the waves, and those lights that have been there my entire life. And so there was this warmth that I got about lighthouses. And then, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years, I've been thinking about how we have to be lighthouses. And so all the metaphors for most of my speeches over the last 10 years, the metaphor of the lighthouse has come back because it's constant and consistent. And it doesn't just turn on when this cloud, when there's a storm. It's on all the time. Right. And I talk about how we need to be lights because we don't know who's in a storm. Right, we don't know who that we're talking to, so our lights got to be on all the time, like a lighthouse. And so for the last, I guess, probably 6 or 7 years, I end every talk with "Keep shining, be a light," and so that has become part. And so our home in Maine is just filled with lighthouses. So there's lighthouse salt and pepper shakers, and lighthouse, and the little handles on the doors are lighthouses. And we bring our grandchildren up there, and we make them count when we want them to do something because we're busy. count the lighthouses. And
how many? What's the highest number?
Right now, there's 39 lighthouses in our house. Yeah, so in the little beach house. So and we keep adding them. Every time. So that's how we got the Lighthouse Collective. We like the word collective because we want to gather people. I have in my head right now, and I want to talk to you guys about it at some point, is like maybe we have a group called the Lighthouse Keepers, because a lighthouse keeper is a really important job, right? Oh, yeah. They're the ones who keep the light going. And so I don't actually know where it's going to go, but I'm kind of excited about it.
That's really cool.
How did you curate the speakers and bring those together? We know some of them. Excited to hear. Tell us more.
Well, it's interesting. We pray a lot about it. Funny enough, I'll share this. Last week, it's at Grace Family Church and in Clearwater, and last week, and now we're going to do this every Monday. Deb and I we're reading the Circle Maker.
Yeah.
And so we decided to walk around Grace Family Church in Clearwater 7 times.
I love it.
And so we're going to do that every Monday for the next little while. And as we're doing that, we're just praying over these people. And they just came to us in a way, like, okay, that person would be amazing, and I don't know where it came from, but they'd be really good. I've seen this indicators of this in their life or whatever. And so these are the folks that are kind of the Lighthouse Collective Live number
1
inaugural event.
I love it.
I really like that your approach was not the way we would typically approach it, because I think the temptation is to go, who's going to bring the biggest crowd?
Yeah.
Who's going to be, what's the biggest name? Who has the most clout? So that way we seem like this is a bigger deal. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're starting, you're always looking for like brand association, right? Yeah. So what brands can I grab onto? And I love that your heart was not that, not to say that wasn't considered, but what you just said was like, man, I'm praying over who God wants to speak and what they can share.
Right.
Not what their brand values. Like, God doesn't need our brand values
He doesn't need anything,
to build anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's scary sometimes because if you know the story of the circle maker, Honi, I guess, stood in the circle until it rained. And, we're kind of going out there with this going, I don't even know if anybody's going to come, like we're putting it out there. And so Deb and I, on our circle walk, we're really praying over the speakers that they would have something valuable to say, but also praying for that God would bring people into these seats that really need to hear what those people have to say. And then we have like a couple of keynotes that, Daryl, who is one of the teaching pastors at Grace, just powerful message. And we thought, okay. And I talked to him about the event, and he was just like 100% in. Like, yeah, I could see myself doing that. And then Jamie Winship was so weird because this book drove us starting this whole thing in the first place. There's a speaker couple called the Ross, Derek and Rachel Roth. Well, they actually know Jamie Winship. So they connected Deb and me to Jamie, and we got on the phone with him, and I said, we're not making any money off this thing. So I don't know if you want to come, or, I was sort of throwing it out there, after Deb and I had prayed. And he goes, what's bizarre is this is the only opening in my calendar for the next 4 or 5 months.
No
like
way.
that weekend. Ooh. So he said, I'll get back to you. And sure enough, he's going to come. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys have read any or listened to any of his podcasts, but on our way home, driving home from Maine, we listened to Jamie Winship for like
Hours.
Hours. Yeah.
That's
Tell me,
so cool.
and Todd and Deb Duncan as well.
Yeah,
right?
so Todd Duncan's a great guy that I've been working with for a little while. He was affiliated with John Maxwell, and he is really well known in the mortgage brokerage space. And so his 2 books that I always recommend, High Trust Selling, in my opinion, the best sales book that I've ever read. Talks about the integrity, high trust selling, and Time Traps. That's his other really good book. So just, how to prioritize your time and pragmatic exercises. The thing about Todd that's so cool is he's super pragmatic. I didn't even know he was a believer, but I should have figured it out based on what I just said to you earlier, because a lot of the truths in his book, High Trust Selling, are about integrity. And but we started using him as a speaker and a trainer at Monate, and I got to know him better, got to know him and his wife better. And strong believer, but incredibly successful author and business person. And so he agreed to just come.
Amazing.
His fee typically to speak is in the tens of thousands of dollars. And I just said, we're doing this. He goes, Deb and I will be there.
That's so
Amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have Clearwater and the beaches in Florida as an
Yes.
attractive. So for our listeners
Yeah.
out of state, maybe you're freezing up north somewhere. What a great time to come to Florida.
Yeah,
what
exactly,
a great time.
exactly.
Tell us.
Take off the depression.
Shake it off at the Lighthouse.
Yeah. Well, did you guys grow up in the north at all, or?
I left. I'm a 5th generation native,
Oh, okay.
Floridian, but
Well-
I left and went to Ohio. I couldn't do it. I had to get out by February, like every year.
Well, I brought Deb up to Montreal to live for a little while, and when it snowed the first week of June, she said, "See ya.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you in Florida.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll be in Florida. I'll meet you in Maine."
June's
But-
not a good time for snow.
No. But this time of year in Canada and northern United States is when all the snow melts, and all the salt and dirt that they use for the roads is just sitting there, and all the dog stuff that's was buried under the snow. It's a good time to come to Florida.
I love
It's a
it.
great time to go there.
Well, how can somebody find out more? We'll link everything on the podcast here. How can they be a part?
Best thing to do is to go to thelightousecollective.global. And everything's there. If it's today, the room block is still open today. There's 2 of them. And so they're open. Get a ticket. We are going to have an absolutely amazing time. And I'm so excited about it, actually.
I love it. No, we'll be sure to check out all the links below, and we're making sure that this is airing with time for you to still attend, for you to still be a part, and come visit. Come say hi to our team, our gang there, and all around Florida we'll host you around Clearwater beaches. Right, Justin? Justin's a tour guide number 8 level on Google, maybe? No.
Well, the Clearwater campus is pretty close to the beach. Actually,
It is.
Super close.
It's nice and west, right?
Yeah.
Great sunsets here too. Like you're not going to see them.
Correct.
Nowhere on the East Coast are you going to see sunsets like this.
Oh no. Yeah.
Well, Stuart, anything else? I mean, just the nuggets you've dropped today is such a great indicator of how awesome the event's going to be. So I can't wait. I'm excited. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up today?
Not really, other than just be with the audience that you've described to me is just let's be bold. 356 times in the Bible it says fear not, and so I've learned what, God has incredibly blessed the money business when I was bold, and so what, it's not easy always, but God will bless it. He will honor it. So I just say, fear not, be bold, be strong, be courageous, and let's do it together.
Keep shining. Huh?
That's a great word.
Keep shining, be a light.
Be the light. Well, thank you so much. That's it for us on this episode, and we'll see you next time on the Nonprofit Renaissance.
Peace.
Thanks again for listening to the Nonprofit Renaissance. We hope it ignites a renaissance in you and helps you go further and grow faster. Be sure to share, rate, and subscribe. And if you'd like to recommend or be a guest on our show, send us an email at podcast@versecreative.com.